Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and in this video I want to show you the basic premise of how to use a CSS loader, which you can do in any framework, just a basic idea of you trigger some CSS before something starts and then you remove it when it ends. So there's a lot of good articles on dev.to where people have created their own loaders. So actually just take a look up CSS Loaders. Just look up that. You'll find plenty of articles where people have created their own CSS loaders that you're free to use. So I'm just going to click on this first one. Okay, and you can see like these little animations like this. These are just CSS animations. That's all they are. Okay, so then right here you can see like the different like examples of the different loaders, and then you can see like the CSS for them. Okay, so you just find the one that you want and you grab the CSS. So you see all it's doing is taking this class and adding it to a thing. So let's actually create an example. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create, because usually you do this when you make API calls. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create an Express app and then create like an API call that's going to take a few seconds to respond, and then use a loader to kind of like make it look like, to be able to show a loader when it happens. So let's do that really quick. Okay, so we'll just do all the stuff to kind of set up an Express app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch a server.js. I am going to touch server.js. I'm going to touch a .getignore file. Then I'm going to do an npm init -y. And then I'm just going to install Express. I should only need Express for this. Okay. And then the .ignore, let me just put the /node modules folder, so that way we ignore node modules. Even though I have a global getignore, I always think even if you set up like a global getignore file, so there's a way you can do that with Git where you set up like a global like always ignore these things. The reason you want to make sure you still do a getignore locally is because when you clone the project to other computers, that may not have that global getignore, you want to make sure it's still ignored. Okay, so just a little note on that. Okay, so server.js, let's just kind of set this all up. So const express equals require express. Then we're going to create our app. Const app equals express. Again, this is not an express lesson, so I'm not going to explain literally every line. I'm just basically setting up I'm going to set up a static server. So I'll get use express.static, which will serve it from the public folder. Okay, actually we'll just call it, our, the website. That'll be the folder that we serve it from. Okay, so I'll create a website folder. Boop. Nope, that's a file. Website. Okay, that's where our website will exist. And then I'm going to create one API route, app.get, which will just be /API, and to represent a API route, rec-res. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set a timeout, set timeout. And we're going to say, hey, when that timeout is done, we're going to say res.json status complete. That's all it's going to return. Now, how long is it going to take to do that? We'll say 3 seconds, so 3,000 milliseconds. Okay, and that's going to be that's the whole endpoint. So essentially what's going to happen is that request is going to come in, it's going to wait 3 seconds, and then so the response is going to take 3 seconds to, which is a long time, to respond. And again, we don't want the user to just think that the page is hanging. Okay, so first let's create the web page. Let me create an index.html, new file, index.html. First, let's just make sure that it works. So let's just create like our basic HTML boilerplate, and let's just do an h1 that says hello world, and just make sure we can see the hello world. Okay, so I'm going to do node --watch server.js. So that'll make the watch flag on newer versions of Node, so like 19 or above, that watch flag will make it where it reloads the file anytime I change the JavaScript in this folder. So it's like what Nodemon does, except you don't have to install Nodemon separately. It's just built into Node now. Okay, so I'm going to hit that. So we're running server.js. So although that's not going to work anyways because I forgot to add app.listen. App.listen, make it on port 4444. Just put a little thingy. Console.log, listening on 44444. Okay, so it's restarting and it's working. Good. So let's go back to localhost 444. Okay, and we see hello world. Now let's also check if the API route works. Okay, so if I go to /API, it should just kind of like hang for 3 seconds and then give me a response. 1, 2, and there we go. So it took 3 seconds, gave us a response. But you can see it took a while. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. So our goal is to make it where we can kind of load that here and show like a loader there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a button that's called, make request. And then we're going to have a div that is going to be like our target for stuff. Okay. And we are going to have our JavaScript, which will just be in the script tag, just to keep it straightforward. And then we're going to have our CSS, which will be in the style tag, just to keep things all on one page. So first I'm just going to grab a loader. So any loader will work. Let's just find one that looks cool. They all look pretty cool. Yeah, let's do that one. That's cool. Okay, so again, that one's going to be called line 10. So I'm going to go look for line 10 here in the CSS, look for that class. Line 10, it's going to be towards the end. So line 10. Okay, so here is where line 10 starts. Okay, so I'm going to copy all this, copy all the keyframes, anything with like that line 10 labeled. Okay, I don't think that body tag matters for this. Okay, let me just see if it does. No, so it's just this. I think this is like a little divider so you know. 10 keyframes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Okay. I think this is just because this is a grid. So you see like there's a grid of all these different, so that's what that last body tag is doing. Okay, so I'm copying all that. Then I'm going to head back over here and copy over that into here. Now, just before, I'm going to make sure that it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give this div the class of line 10 and just see that, hey, does it actually do what I think it's going to do? Okay, so I should see the loader when I go back to this page. If I refresh it. Okay, we see the loader, although the placement's kind of weird. Not where I'd like it to be. Okay, so let's see here. If I do this, I'm going to put a couple BRs. Does that fix it? No, it's putting it by default all the way up there. So let me just find out. Let's take a look at the CSS. Why is it putting it right there? Display grid. Let's get rid of the display grid. Well, actually, probably. Let's take a look. Is there anything that's placing it up there? Content, grid area, transform, keyframes, background size. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that's kind of positioning it. Background position. Here we go. So let's see what happens if I comment this out. Okay. Does that fix it? No. Okay, what if I just cut this out for a second? Let me just refresh the page. Now it just does that. So that's not what I want. Just kind of want to get that where I want it. Background size. Just probably just transform maybe. Rotate, calculate it, calculate. Let's get rid of all this grid stuff. Just trying to take a look at the position of where it is. Okay, so again, the width, height, yep. Display grid. What if I get rid of the display grid? Oops. So let's see here. Let's say if I comment that out. Let's see what happens. Actually, let me just do it by cutting it out. Okay, and let's just see what happens. Okay, not quite what I wanted, but that works. Okay, we'll live with that. Okay. So if I cut that out, it'll just make that little box. That's fine. Okay. Cool. So now that we know that the animation works and where it's going to appear, we kind of see what it looks. I'm going to take this class off the div. Okay. And now what I can do is go to my JavaScript. Okay. Now, actually, in my JavaScript, I'm going to want both of these things to grab both of these elements as nodes. So in that case, if you're talking about like a framework like React, you probably make it a ref and do the equivalent type technique in whatever other framework you're using where you grab that node. You could also use imperative JavaScript. That's always an option too, like I'm about to do. So first we'll grab the button variable. So document.querySelector. And I'm going to grab the button. Then I'm going to get the div equals document.querySelector. Now again, chances are your DOM is going to be much more complicated than mine, so probably don't grab it by the element, grab it by like an ID. Would probably be smarter. Okay, so now I got the two elements. So what I want to do is I want to start things off when you click that button. Okay, so we're going to say button.addEventListener. So when you click the button, what I want to happen, okay, is that I'm going to want to make a fetch. Okay, so we'll make this async to make life easier. Okay, so it'll be like const response equals await fetch, and then we can just fetch from /API. And because it's on the same URL, I don't have to type out the whole URL. So whenever it's like on this like a same origin request, you could just type in the endpoint because it's going to assume the same origin, meaning it'll assume localhost 4000 /API. Okay, if I'm going to some other website, some other origin, then I got to type out the whole URL with the HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, and then what I want to happen is that when you fetch API, and that's fine. Okay, then we want to get the data from there. Const data equals await response.json. And then we're going to just say div.inner text is going to equal status data.status, because basically again we're sending back that object with the property of status. Okay, so let's try that out. Now let's do it before we do the animation. The animation should be gone, so let me refresh. So I should click on this, and it's going to take 3 seconds for that word to appear. So 1, 2, 3. See, it took like a long time, but like how was I supposed to know that that was loading? Okay, that's why we want a loader. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that before we start the fetch, so I'm going to go back to my code. So before we start the fetch, I'm going to add a class to the div. So I'm going to take div.ClassList.add. I'm going to add, what was it, line 10. So that's going to add that class to the div right before I do the fetch. Okay, actually, no, I don't want to do that in there. I want to do it inside the event loop here. So I want to do it before we do the fetch. Okay, so this is going to basically start the animation. Okay, this is going to make the fetch. Okay, this is going to get the response data. But before I render it inside the div, then what I'm going to do is want to get rid of that list. So div.ClassList.remove, .remove, and then I can remove that class. So that way the animation stops. That's it. So basically right before I put the text in there, I'm going to just remove that so that way the animation stops. So then I stop the animation and then, render the data to the div. Okay, and then let's see how it works. So I'll refresh this. I click make request. So the animation starts. And when it's done, complete. So that's it. That's all it takes to do a CSS animation. You're really just basically adding a class when the animation should start and removing it when the animation should end. Simple as that. Hopefully you guys found this useful. My name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to also join the Slack community at devnursery.com. Okay, so if you head over to devnursery.com, okay, you can find the Slack community right here. Okay, and yeah, and also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/AlexMercedCoder. Okay, and there I am. Okay, so go follow me on Twitter and on YouTube. See you all later.